We discussed definitions of overweight and obesity, the increasing prevalence of overweight and obesity in the U.S. population, evidence of the harm from being overweight or obese, the mechanism whereby we become overweight and obese, and whereby that elevated weight causes harm for our health. Now, is it all doom and gloom? Is that the end of the story? If we're overweight or obese, is there no hope for us? Certainly not. There are effective strategies for helping you maintain a normal weight and losing weight if you are overweight. And I'm going to share them with you now. Now, a lot of people come to me specifically referred for weight loss, and they're expecting us to roll up our sleeves and get down to business with a diet plan. But it's actually known that diets don't work. And there are factors outside of what a person is eating, and there are goals beside a number on a scale that are important to consider. Let's start with tip number 1. Get enough sleep. It's important to get 7 hours of sleep every night, even on weekends, with a consistent bedtime. Sleep has myriad benefits, and one of them is living longer. We're speaking specifically today about the benefit of sleep for maintaining a healthy body weight. Insufficient sleep causes weight gain, firstly by decreased willpower. The first thing to go when we're sleep deprived is our executive function, the decision-making part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. That's also the part of the brain we may be relying on to make the right decision when it comes to what to eat or whether or not to eat. So if you're sleep deprived, the area of the brain that is most important for making good decisions is the area of the brain that is the first to go offline. So it's very important for you to not be sleep deprived when you're going through the day. The other thing that sleep deprivation does is it screws up our hunger and satiety hormones. If we don't get enough sleep, we have elevated ghrelin levels. Ghrelin is a hormone that tells us to eat more. We also have abnormally low leptin levels. Leptin is a signal that is released after we eat, telling us we're full, but it doesn't get released normally after we eat. So not only are we more hungry because of ghrelin being abnormally elevated, when we do eat, we're less satisfied. So we have to eat more because leptin is no longer working effectively. And finally, sleep deprivation leads to excess body weight because it causes a chronic stress response. When we are sleep deprived, our body doesn't understand that what a party is. We are designed over 2 million years of evolution, and it's only in the past 200 years that we've had electricity and have stayed up past dark. So our body thinks that if we have to be up all night or into the night, or if we're staying up past a normal bedtime, that there's an emergency. There weren't such thing as parties on the savannah. So it thinks that there's some sort of a problem and it needs to go into a kick in a stress response. Chronic sleep deprivation leads to a chronic stress response. A stress response is characterized by cortisol, which is a hormone that floods the system during an acute stressor and floods the system during chronic stress. Relevant to our discussion is the increase in blood sugar that occurs with elevated cortisol. Elevated blood sugar makes sense if we are running from a lion or fighting a bear. If we need energy quickly, it makes sense to flood our bloodstream with glucose so we can use it. But what happens is, normally when we have elevated glucose, we have insulin released. Insulin normally functions by being released when glucose levels in the blood are high. Insulin's effect is to lower blood sugar by signaling to muscle and fat cells to take up the sugar in the bloodstream. However, if we are in chronic stress mode, if our bloodstream is chronically high in blood sugar, insulin is pervasive. It's all over the place. It's never at a low point. So the muscle and fat cells start to become insensitive to it. They stop responding to the signal because it's ever present and always there. What this does is it means that when we eat something, our blood sugar goes up, but we're not, and then our insulin goes up, but insulin doesn't work. So the sugar in our bloodstream can't get into the tissues, can't get into the muscle and the fat that need it. So we have a persistently high blood sugar, and we eat, but we don't feel hungry, so we have to keep eating. Chronic stress leads to chronically elevated blood sugar, which leads to insulin resistance, which further compounds being overweight and obese. So recommendation number 1, get enough sleep. And if you need tips for how to get enough sleep, I recommend you view that recommendation, get 7 hours of sleep every night in Health Score.